Right. Welcome everyone to the Unstoppable Blueprint podcast and web show. Got my special guest Jim O'Leary here on. We're friends from LinkedIn and now colleagues, and this is the magic and power of networking. We're going to talk about how structure and systems will really ensure your success and speed it up a lot as well. So, want to introduce you to Jim. And Jim, just real quickly, high level, tell us about yourself, your history. What do you do?
Yeah, thanks, James. Jim O'Leary. I live in New Jersey. I was a longtime Phoenix area native, and 20-year career as an operational leader, running small companies to medium-sized companies, scaling one from 1 to 5 million, another from helping scale them from 20 to 200 million. And currently COO of the Acquisition Network, which helps people find, source, and give them training on acquiring businesses, which is something that a lot of people are trying to figure out, and it's pretty challenging. So trying to help people navigate. I just leverage my operational background to be able to put kind of bring people, process, and systems together.
Nice.
Appreciate you having me.
Beautiful. My pleasure to have you here. And this is great because, again, with your background experience, I want to dig into why a lot of either entrepreneurs, business owners, big or small, fail. And because we were talking before the show as well about, like I said, systems, structure, it's even the mindset. And it's that almost the project management without being a project manager of all these stuff and projects in our lives. So I love how you mentioned that, behind the scenes earlier on our conversation. What would you say? What causes most failure, would you say, in organizations from your view, from your perspective, Jim?
Well, I think it's the, you can't have sales, or you can have sales, but if you don't have the operational infrastructure, at least at a certain level, to back it up and to be able to deliver against whatever you've sold, that's like a weak link, and your process is going to break. If you have all the process and systems in the world, but you don't have the sales funnel, marketing and sales funnel, and that engine working, then that's broken as well, right? So it's really like finding and maximizing or optimizing the level of sales and operational infrastructure to keep you going, right? First and foremost, and then as you want to expand and grow, then it's how do we build those processes and systems that are scalable, right? So like people don't scale, processes do.
Yeah, fair.
Systems and technology scale, people don't. So, at first, sometimes people will add a bunch of, as you're growing, you just throw a bunch of people at it because everybody knows how to do that, right? Like, okay, and bring people to help me. I need help, right? As a business owner, that's I've watched a lot of folks do that.
Fair.
And then it's, your costs get out of control. And it's hard to manage, right? Like, what is everybody really doing? And that you didn't really set yourself up for success because, and I'll call it project management, even though it's not, because it's not technically like using the PMP or PMI system to like manage a project, but it's having a structure and systems and process in place in terms of, first and foremost, like your mental space, right? Like, okay, like a lot of, I would say most business owners and most business founders that I've met are sales-based. The vast majority, not all of them, but the vast majority that I've worked with have been sales focused. And so everybody kind of goes, ooh, process systems. That's not really right. And it's like, but it doesn't have to be like, a manufacturing manual of like 1.2.4.6.8. And you have a manual that's 10,000 of like, 10,000 pages of ISO 9001 or whatever, right? Systems to be able to operate your business. It's like, no, just be thoughtful about it, right? Just be purposeful in how you structure and trying to understand, like, do I have the right people in place? Do I have the right process? And do I have the right systems or technology to support my scaling so that I'm not having to throw people at it? And it's just really like, to me, it's that in terms of like having the right level of process appropriate for the organization at the stage that you're at. And it doesn't have to be a whole lot more than that.
Fair. And it, in my opinion, doesn't have to be overly expensive as well. I mean, it was interesting to your point when I started my business. I for a while, I didn't even have systems. I had people's like names and emails written on papers and stuff, and they would get lost, little note sticky pads, and they would get lost. And then I upgraded to an Excel spreadsheet and kept track of people that way. And then that was just a disaster too, because I sorted it wrong one day and I had different emails for the wrong person, the phone numbers for the wrong person. I'm like, hey, can I speak to Barb or Sam? And they're like, no, wrong number. And just, it got out of control. Plus, it's not scalable. Plus there's all kinds of free, whatever you want, marketing tools, CRMs, there's AI stuff. There's a lot of free databases and stuff too, that you can grow and scale with. And I think I made the mistake of I guess, leaving the corporate world and throwing out all the systems, screw the systems, nuts to that, and becoming an entrepreneur. But again, entrepreneurs have systems as well. That's why, at least the successful entrepreneurs are able to take a lot of time off. They have systems that track people, that tell you when to call them, that email people for you. And again, there's free versions of these too. It'll tell you reminder of this, or you'll let you, keep notes on a client, or be able to email certain subsets to your clients. Hey, I have a webinar coming up on sales, or I have a podcast person and he's going to be talking about whatever. So I really hear you when you talk about, it's just these systems, the importance of having these systems and structures. Because I even found myself, Jim, there's just the failures that would happen. To your point, I would add people and I was either agnostic, I would hand it off completely with no monitoring or supervision, or I would micromanage it, or there was no system in place. But you're thinking, well, just be like me, do what I would do, kind of thing. But people are different. They don't know what to do. Like, what do I do? How do I do it? So just do it with me. Call people, talk to them, get them engaged, or do this or do that. And those systems and structures. And it doesn't have to be complex, like you said too. It doesn't have to be complex. It can be simple, but it needs to be effective. And like you said, then you can scale. I love it. So switching again, what not to do, and why a lot of businesses fail. What have you seen in your roles and just the work organizations you've worked for as well? What has been the things that I'm pretty sure you're going to say systems and structures and processes, but what are the things really, or about those specifically, that have made them really effective? Or do they need to be complex? Are the complex ones useless? Are they good? Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, complex. The more complex, the worse it's going to be. I understand when you're a Fortune 100 company and you have layers and layers of people, and you have any technology you want, et cetera, right? Like those environments, highly matrixed, heavily people oriented. Yeah, you need more complex systems to be able to manage the level of complexity they have. The vast majority of us are not at that level, right? I was at we were at $100 million, and we had kind of grown, and we had acquired a company, and we gotten some new teammates and resources and things, and brought some people in from the outside that had, we were able to recruit from some bigger talent because we had bigger budgets. And, I probably wasted, we were trying to do a project that I could have probably got done in 3 weeks. Total time. Could have got done in 3 weeks, could have ran, I tried a high speed, low drag. But I tried to run a system, right? But we wasted 3 weeks debating which project management methodology we should use. Well, do we have to build a race seed? Do we have to build this? I want to have an executive. I need an executive sign off, and I need this big document, this 10-page. They built a 10-page document. They're like, this is what I used when I was at insert Fortune 100 company name to do a project initiation process. And I was like, I go, okay, all of that, like while I appreciate that, like we just wasted so much. We could have had a whole project done almost if we wouldn't have debated this. So I said, here's what I'm going to do. I built a one page, like a one slide. Hey, here's a paragraph. What are we trying to accomplish? Who is the team, and what are their roles? And who do we need to be able to be successful, right? Like, we understand the stakeholders. So like list out, like you could list it in one slide and say, hey, you do 5 or 6 15-minute pre-communications. And this is a $100 million organization, right? Wow. Like this isn't, if you're in a smaller company, like you could walk around the office and, hey, here's what we want to do. Like, hey, let's all take 10 minutes. And you could have wrote it on a whiteboard, right? Like whatever your version is, depending on how big or small your organization is. and literally like that one pager done. Like everybody knows what we're doing.
Yep.
Everybody knows who the people are and what their roles are, and everybody knows who we need to be accountable to,
Sure.
and who's going to do the work.
That should work.
And then you can just kick the project off and actually like dig into doing the work of building whatever process system, whatever it is you're working on. And so, scale that up or down depending on like, hey, what if you're a 10 or 20 person company or a 50 person company that you're doing, $10 million worth of work. Yeah, that same process works. You don't have to overthink it, right? But just be thoughtful around, hey, we need to kick this off. We need everybody on the same page. We need to communicate. And then we need to assign, like everybody needs to understand what they're doing and what the other people are doing. So you're not having multiple, right? You're not having inefficiency. You're not having 3 people doing the same thing.
And then no one doing that to this.
And no one doing these other 2 things, right? Like, and so that to me is one way to just simplify it.
I love it.
And then you're purposeful, right? You're purposeful in how you're managing your business and how you're approaching the work. And whether that's leveraging, whether you're putting technology in place, whether you're doing a new whatever initiative it may be, but not complicated.
I like it. And my fear again was like, oh, I don't need it yet, or I'm not big enough yet, or it's too complicated. I think a lot of people's fear is whether they're startups, whether they're 10, 20, 50 employees or beyond, 100 employees, 1,000. I think it's just the complexity and the fear of the unknown scares people. But like you said, you can have like a 1-pager, a 2-pager, and expand upon that if you need it. It doesn't need to be complex. It does not need to be expensive. There's lots of free tools, free resources out there, whether it's Asana or Monday.com, whether it's the free version of Zoho or of Aweber or MailChimp or whatever the tool, whatever the system you need is, right?
Everybody doesn't need Salesforce.
No,
they don't need to pay for it, and they don't need the complexity of it, right? Like there are free, to your point, free tools. Hey, QuickBooks for a lot of small, like from startups to like a certain size, that accounting software works great, and it's a heck of a lot better than putting in Excel or Google Sheets.
Well, exactly.
Both of which I've seen people do as well. And like, oops, I accidentally deleted a bunch of transactions, or I got my columns out of place, or whatever it may be, right? Like, I mix something up, and you can make pretty significant mistakes.
Yes, true.
I mean, you can avoid it for not that much money.
Yeah.
Right. Like
agreed.
It's not some crazy investment. And that's the other thing where, my recommendation is be thoughtful and be practical before you get on the phone with somebody selling some software or something else where you're like, oh, it could be amazing, and let's do a demo, and hey, what do you really need?
Yeah.
And then I guess the other thing that I've always recommended is like, have a good network of people. Sure. Right. And a lot of founders, a lot of business owners, their network and their friends are people that are in the same space or at the same level they are, where it's like, be humble enough to say, I don't know what I don't know. And like, I've done that. I've learned so much by just being open and saying like, hey man, what are you guys using? Right. I have a buddy that's working. Like, he's a consultant. He worked for McKinsey and some other things. And he's like, hey man, what have you seen? Like, here's kind of what I'm running into. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. Here's right. Like, and
here's this. Yeah.
And hey, I mean, McKinsey, like people pay those guys a lot of money.
Right?
Like, a lot of money to tell them what to do. And he's like, you don't have to, he's like, don't overclub it. Right. That was his biggest advice. Don't overclub it. Like get the basic thing, and like just don't commit yourself to some long expensive commitment.
Yeah.
And then but get a system, have a process in place, and then figure out how to scale it as you grow.
Very true. And as we said before, it is hard to scale. I mean, we can be us, we could be the entrepreneur, if it's a 1-person or even 10-person business. And so I've seen, multi-million-dollar organizations, while the owner or the CEO is still micromanaging everything and refuses to let go. It happens to a lot of us. I did it too. Now I have all these VAs that do all this stuff for me that I don't have to do. Thank goodness. And I can scale and grow and do less of the stuff I don't want to do. But to your point, it's like making sure that giving people the structure and the system, not just the systems, but the structure. Hey, here's what to do. Here's how you do it. To your point earlier, Jim, here's who's responsible for this. So go see Jim or Jane or James or Fred or Sally. They're the captain of this or that. to make sure things get done effectively and don't fall through the cracks. And if something does go off the rails, okay, well, this is, Jim's wheelhouse. This is James. This is Sally. This is, Monica's wheelhouse. So okay, what happened here? How do we fix it? Versus everyone's like, well, not my fault. It's not me. I didn't do it. And then you can't fix it at all.
Exactly. You've got to, that process also has to be simplified. But I think it's like when you break it down, right? You look at, if we're going to grow, right? Whether you're like, hey, let's say if you're opening additional locations or like multi-unit business, whatever that is, industry doesn't matter. But like, hey, we want to open 10 locations this year. Can we? Right? Like, well, I can say, if you got the founder saying, or whatever, I can sell it. Awesome. Do we have the ability to deliver against it? Right.
Fair.
And people say, well, how do you scale? How do you? And I'm like, it's not that complicated, right? You look at, there's a couple ways to do it. What are you trying to do? Okay, we want to open 10 additional locations this year. Okay, well, what current team do you have? What capabilities and what's their throughput? Right? How many, if you didn't add people, you didn't add technology, and you didn't add a process, you're operating how you're operating today. How many could you open? How many could you stand up? And where would the process break? And if you do that quick analysis, right? Ask 3 people that are directly involved in that, or 2 people that are directly involved in that in your organization. They'll tell you, right? Like operators will tell you, hey, here's all we can manage. Here's all we can handle. And you know where your break is, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean.
And then you back up and say, okay, well, I don't probably have enough process, and I don't have enough people, and I might not have enough technology. Okay, cool. Well, do I have the right people? Right? Assess whether you have the people that got you here, can they get you there? Right. So that's just an honest assessment. And if you do, then it's, well, how many people would I have to add in what disciplines to be able to bump that number from like, hey, with the team I have, I can only do 3 locations. Well, I want to get to 10. So like, it's probably not triple the number of people, but it's like, well, do I need any technology to assist in this process? Or do we have a good system? And usually your operators will be able to tell you, hey, we haven't really documented everything. If we onboard some new people, we're probably going to need some documentation. So then like, hey, we might be overshooting, or we might just have to, we might have to do an earlier ramp on the people to help build out the process to then catch us up as we sell it out. I don't know. That's so, but don't overcook it.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Don't overcook it. Don't overcomplicate it. Talk to your people, ask your people, listen to your people. And if you don't have people working with you, go ask, a mentor, a friend, colleague, us, whoever, find someone just to support, have a coffee, have a conversation, or hire someone, of course, whatever works. I mean, whether you're a sub-$1 million, solopreneur, or you have a few employees who's sub-million, or you're in the 3s and 5s and 10s of millions, great. It's what I'm hearing. It's all about the system to help you grow, probably statement and scope of purpose and practice as well, to naturally having the SOPs as standard operating procedures. This is how we do this. So new people, new sales, or new operations, or new lead gen, or new whatever, they don't, button pushers, or hammer pressers, or whatever, know when they come in, this is what we do, how to do it, this is what we found works really well. And yeah, give us feedback if you think this doesn't work, or if this hasn't been working, or if you've seen some that works better somewhere else. Let us know. I'm hearing, listen to your people, ask your people, talk to your people, and also get advice, whoever that's from, that is in the know, a consultant, a friend, a business owner that is doing what you want to do.
And then I think one more thing that I've seen in much smaller or entrepreneurship environments, startup environments, is let's say there is a technology or a system, a service, right, that you want to buy. Like for instance, I was somewhere where we wanted to farm out all the sales to a sales organization, because it was, the founder was like, I'm tired of selling. Like,
yeah, fair.
I'm selling everything. I tried to I built a team. I've wasted a bunch of money. It didn't work out like I wanted to. I'm not a really good sales manager, but we have to figure it out. So like, maybe we'll hire an outside organization. No problem. If that's right, like, okay, yeah, that's a viable strategy, right? But what my advice would be in watching that deployed well and also deployed not so well, varying results, is when you go to find these companies that do this, service or tech, whatever you're doing demos, it doesn't matter what it is. Either one, be really disciplined in your approach to how you're going before you talk to anyone. Okay, what are the things, what are my care abouts? What are the things most important to me? What do I have to have? And what are the things that like would be nice to have but aren't essential? And then write those down. And then as you're going through that, stick to that, because I've watched people like get sold or buy the first thing. Oh, this guy sounded great. They're gonna solve it for me. Awesome. I'm gonna stroke him a big check, and it's 25 grand to set it up, and then it's they get to cover the revenue and et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, sounds great. These guys are amazing. My advice: we find 2 more companies that do the exact same thing, and you never buy before you do it. You compare 3 organizations or 3 sets of software that do the same service. Because I've watched people, in the company I'm in currently, like, every time we go back through kind of the vendor list, or we're talking about, finance or budgets or whatever, it's like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done X. I really that just didn't work. And it's like, well, how did you, and I ask questions. Well, how did you, it was before I came. So like, how did you get to that decision? Well, I met this guy and we talked and I thought it was going to be great. And I paid for it. And I was like, well, you didn't. And one of the first things I said when I came onto the team was like, hey, 3 vendors for everything. Everything we do is 3. And I was in supply chain. So it was like, I always wanted 3 vendors, no matter what. Like if I had a core supplier, I still wanted 2 other options in case something happened, in case.
Well, true. You never, exactly.
Right. You just, your redundancy, right? Yep. Like just from a redundancy standpoint, but then you're also preventing yourself from making an emotional decision and either wasting money or then wasting time, energy, and effort, right? Like buying the wrong thing.
It's true. And I like that. It's like on one hand, avoid procrastinating and overthinking, waiting forever, and overcomplicating, overbaking it. To your point, though, have a couple. I mean, there's scientific proof actually that our brain enjoys and likes and thrives on evaluating 2 or 3 different things when we're making any decision. So it's like, okay, I feel comfortable, I feel good, I've evaluated, versus that emotional excitement of, okay, they're going to solve all my problems. I've done it too, by the way. I've done it too, and then
we all have.
Didn't work, or it could have worked better, or it could have gone better, or whatever. But and this has been great. I appreciate you being on here, Jim, and you helping contribute to people and to leaders, to businesses as well. If someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you? Is it a LinkedIn? Is it an email? How can people connect?
LinkedIn's by far the easiest way to connect with me, because that's, I'm on there all the time. we built a pretty decent network, and I would love to connect with anybody that has thoughts, ideas, could use my help. Or, I could, just trading ideas or picking my brain. Like I'm happy to connect and talk with anybody about, like, I'm passionate about this kind of stuff.
Right on.
And so I've been doing it for a while. So I've at least seen enough to say, like, hey, I've seen it work well this way. I've seen it, maybe these couple ways, and then I've seen it fail this, and hey, I don't have a perfect track record either. Like I've made emotional decisions. I've either procrastinated too much or lacked discipline in the decision-making process, because I got wrapped up emotionally in like a sales pitch or something, right? We've all done it.
Yeah.
And then it's really like, how do you thoughtfully like extricate yourself? So I try to bring that disciplined mindset to everything I do, so that I honestly prevent myself from stepping in the wrong pothole.
Right on. And then, of course, the action step is taking action, not letting, like I said, don't overthink, don't overbake, and without it taking forever. So this is awesome. I appreciate it. I'll have to have you back on, because this will open up a whole new other conversation. Thanks for joining today, giving some value.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, brother. Thank you. Cheers.